And so my message to Mr. Carney is steal our best ideas. Yes. Work with us. Let's get it done. Let's put our country first. Who cares who gets the credit? Take our ideas.
For me personally, I only really started paying attention to the news in Canada kind of around COVID. Before that, I didn't really care. And COVID was like, hey, 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And then we found out that that wasn't true. And so the whole world, or at least Canada, was glued to our TVs or our phones for these updates from our leadership. And I grew to be very disappointed. So I would just kind of get accustomed to that. Is today going to be good news? Nope. Today was not good news. So however long that's been, 5 years now, I guess, of just like everyday bad updates, bad news. And I still, even after 5 years, have the hope that one day I'll wake up with maybe good news. You know, we've like gotten out of COVID and changed the government around. You know what I'm saying? Like a different guy, but not a different guy. And now I still wake up in the morning going, maybe today's the day where we actually have some good news. And I'm still disappointed. I don't know why I still wake up thinking that like that. Maybe I should just get in the mindset that every day is going to be bad news and I should just get used to it. But no, I'm still a little bit hopeful. But today's bad news is pretty bad. We've got kids that are shooting each other up in different parts of Toronto, gang affiliated or not gang affiliated. It's still happening. You've got 70% increase in missing people. That's a weird statistic. And then, yeah, you've got the fact that Canada brags about spending more money per GDP to Ukraine than any other country. And then the cherry on top is our economy is literally in a decline. Like we didn't go up, we've actually gone down, and the numbers prove it. And it's very frightening. So yeah, more bad news, but I guess that's just Canada. We drink our coffee, we look at the outdoors and we go, I wonder if I'll get fined for hiking today. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. It does really help grow the channel. And before we get into it, I do want to also tell you guys that if you want like American news, American content, stuff like that, click the link down below in the description or the pinned comment below. I've got an American channel called Unfiltered Sunshine where you can see I used to post mostly Canadian stuff. It was my secondary Canadian channel, but I'm just so sick and tired of all the Canadian stuff. So I'm working on American stuff as well. So if you are an American or like American content, feel free to subscribe to that channel down below. Without further ado, now let's get into this. Starting off with Ukraine. The fact that Canada is a top contributor to Ukraine aid, but apparently the per capita claims are exaggerated. So after Prime Minister Mark Carney's surprise visit to Ukraine earlier this weekend, criticism of the nearly $22 billion in assistance that Canada has pledged to the country so far spread on social media, along with misunderstandings about what's included in the aid package. Some of the criticism pointed to a news release from the Prime Minister's office stating that Canada has made the highest per capita contribution among G7 countries. In fact, while Canada contributed the most direct financial supports per capita among G7 countries, it has not contributed the most in total. So the claims: since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022, Canada has committed nearly $22 billion in multifaceted assistance for Ukraine, the highest per capita among G7 countries, who the Prime Minister says in a news release that coincided with Ukraine's Independence Day on Sunday. And when you actually click, like you can see here, there's a hyperlink, right? One post and another post. So the mainstream media, this is City News, they're referring to this post right here by Government Corrupt on X. Watch that Mark Carney says Canada is the largest per capita donor to Ukraine. So that's interesting. And then they also quote Marty up north. The $22 billion that Canada donated is equivalent to $550 per capita if you assume there are 40 million Canadians. So that's kind of interesting that the media is starting to use your average day Canadian like posts on social media embedded in their releases or media releases and stuff like that. It's interesting. But Canada's funding commitments include direct financial assistance as well as funds for military, humanitarian development, and other needs. But not all of those funds have been dispersed. And almost all of the direct financial assistance is in the form of loans. The Canadian government says it has committed $6.5 billion in military assistance through 2029, including the $2 billion announced at the G7 summit in Alberta earlier in June. Additionally, Canada has committed $372.2 million in humanitarian funding, $700 million in development assistance. About $12.1 billion of the $12.3 billion in financial assistance. Canada also committed to Ukraine in the form of loans, which come to maturity 10 years after their issue date. And so it kind of gets weirdly spun, not by people like myself and other creators in the space, but by the media, because it's our prime minister that says that we are giving Ukraine. They don't even, when they acknowledge it in public, they don't say loans. Also, if Ukraine is requiring all this money from all these different countries, because let's be honest, every G7 country and most NATO countries are contributing to Ukraine in some form. So Ukraine's in this position where they're requiring money from so many different countries around the world to just fight their war. But all of these loans mature in 10 years. So which begs the question, how will they ever repay it? You ever been in a situation where someone who, one of your buddies or someone you know is like, hey man, can I borrow money? And you feel weird about it because you're like, I don't feel like you're gonna actually borrow it. I feel like you're just taking it and leaving. Or what do you mean borrow it? You don't even have the money to like pay it back. It's one of those situations, but instead of a buddy, it's an entire country. And this is a lot of money, not only that we've provided through loans, but that the rest of NATO and G7 countries has also provided, I'm assuming, through loans. So yeah, maybe one day in 50 or 100 years, we get all of our money back plus interest. But until then, until we start getting any money back, I'm personally viewing it as Canada giving that money to Ukraine. Also, we could have just like invested it in ourselves, like our government buying Bitcoin, or I don't know, gold. I don't know why we sold our gold in the first place. Canada has no gold from my understanding. So yeah, not very good decisions on our Canadian government's part. That's my belief. I'd like to know where you guys stand on that. And then we got to take a look here at this the shooting that happened at the Scarborough Town Center last week. I talked about this. I talked about how that kind of hits home for me because I used to go there when I was in high school. I'd go there to watch movies and like shop with my buddies and stuff like that. So kind of weird. But 17-year-old was charged with second-degree murder after 19-year-old was shot and killed last week by the name of Daniel Amalathas. The two 17-year-olds have been arrested and charged with second-degree murder after a man was found with his fatal gunshot wound in Scarborough Town Center last week. Just before 2 p.m. August 21st, police responded to a call where someone had been shot at the Scarborough Town Center Mall. They find a 19-year-old in the washroom suffering from gunshot wound. The man, later identified as Daniel, was pronounced dead on the scene. The two 17-year-old boys were arrested Thursday in connection with an investigation. Both have been charged with second-degree murder. The shooting was Toronto's 27th homicide of 2025. We're only halfway through the year. That's quite a few homicides. Anyone with information is being asked to contact police. And that is the photo of the man, the 19-year-old who was shot and killed in the Scarborough Town Center washroom. And it's just sad. It's just sad that first of all, guns are like supposed to be banned. So how did two 17-year-olds get their hands on guns in the first place? And it's just crazy, man. It's just really sad. And that's not the only really sad statistic that's floating around today, unfortunately. You also have this one here coming from the Red Cross. Number of registered missing people surges to 70% in 5 years. And the reason that's being stated here is the increase is being driven by growing numbers of conflicts, mass migration, and fading respect for the rules of war, the International Committee of Red Cross said in a statement, which is just freaking sad, man. It just feels like the world is going through this really shitty period where crime is at its all-time high and unaffordability is at its all-time high. Like, it's just, I want to go back to the old days, where kids would just leave their bikes out on the front lawn and we'd be gone like all day and get dirt on ourselves and the sun would be coming down and we'd run into the house, be like, hey mom, is dinner ready? Why are you late? What's going on? Hope you had fun. Here, eat some food. Like those days where, you could play hockey in the streets and, you didn't have to worry about some weird politician saying elbows up. You just got to play hockey and like be a normal Canadian. I miss those days. But now we're going to shift away from that stuff and we're going to take a look at Pierre Poilievre, who is actually encouraging the elbows up guy himself to steal his ideas, to steal Pierre's ideas because they are good for the country. Let's have a look.
We think that our role in this parliament is to put forward good ideas. And so my message to Mr. Carney is steal our best ideas. Yes. Work with us. Let's get it done. Let's put our country first. Who cares who gets the credit? Take our ideas so that we can reverse not only the crime and chaos the Liberals have caused, but let's also take these ideas to bring the cost of living, immigration, and unemployment down. Keep our people safe. Let's put our country first. Let's once again work together, all of us from all parties, to make this a country where everyone who works hard gets a beautiful house in a safe street with good food on the table, united under our proud Canadian flag.
That's actually not the first time that Pierre Poilievre encourages Mark Carney to steal his ideas. I believe it happened right after the federal election where Mark Carney started to implement some of Pierre Poilievre's ideas. And he's like, good, yeah, okay. I mean, just take them because they are good for Canada. So that's a pretty honorable mentality to have. And again, not the first time that Pierre has been saying that, but he's saying that for a specific reason today of all days, because this just hit the press. Canadian economy shrinks 1.6% in the second quarter as U.S. tariff squeeze exports. Construction was much larger than expected, but higher spending softened the blow. Canada's economy shrank much more than expected in the second quarter as U.S. tariffs squeezed exports, but higher household and government spending softened the blow somewhat, Statistics Canada said on Friday. The GDP of the quarter that ended June 30th slowed by 1.6% on the annualized basis, while first quarter growth was downwardly revised. The 2%, the data agency said. The latest figures show that Canada's economy grew at an annualized rate of 0.4% in the last 6 months of the year. The second quarter contraction was the first quarterly slowdown in 7 years. A larger than expected slowdown in growth could boost chances of an interest rate cut by the Bank of Canada in September. The central bank has kept rates steady at 2.75% in its last three meetings. And so, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what Tiff Macklem and the Bank of Canada do come September. Are we still going to be stuck at 2.75, or are we going to be, is that number going to come down so that the cost of borrowing, can drastically improve? Is it going to be a 25-point basis cut? Is it going to be a 50-point basis cut? Or is it going to be something even crazy aggressive like what America is trying to do with like a 1 or 2-point basis cut? I don't think that would happen in Canada, but you never know. You never know. It could be Canada's move and the Bank of Canada's move to really try to counter the tariffs, right? The Bank of Canada predicted in its July report on monetary policy that the Canadian economy would contract somewhere in the ballpark of 1.5% in the second quarter. Swing and a miss. Money markets predicted a 48% chance of a rate cut on September 17th once GDP figures were released, up from 40% before they were published. So you can see Q1 of 2023, we were up 1%. Q2 of 2023, we're up 0.2%. Q3 of 2023, we were down only 0.1%. And then we were up and we were up and we were up at the 0.5, 0.6 range per quarter. And then down to 0.4 this quarter, which is a really big hit to our economy. Because if that's what's happening now, as we are going into Q3, what's that going to look like? If we have another really bad quarter like that, it's going to be some panic time. It really will be. People are going to have to, sell their businesses because they can't afford to keep up with the tariffs, right? Statistics Canada said that the economy contracted by 0.1% in June on a monthly basis, mainly led by a decline in output from goods producing industries, which accounts for a quarter of the country's GDP. So this is getting a little crazy here, folks. This is getting a little crazy, and a lot of analysts have different ways, different takes on this, right? So from Desjardins, Jimmy Jean notes that the contraction was export driven and not necessarily a full blown recession. This may strengthen the case for Bank of Canada rate cut later on in December. Scotiabank highlights robust financial domestic demand, which is up 3.4% as a sign of international economic strength, suggesting that inflation adjusted domestic activity that could cause the central bank to hesitate on rate cuts until more data are in. And the market reaction for the Q2 figures have elevated expectations for a September rate cut. So you're kind of getting mixed reactions across the board. And I do want to pass it off to you. How do you feel about this? Do you think that, I mean, obviously being down in the second quarter is bad, but how bad is it to you? Is this really bad? Is this nothing to worry about? Let me know where you guys stand. Also, let me know your predictions for the September Bank of Canada update. Do you think that Tiff Macklin will or even should lower the rates, or do you think otherwise? Because personally, I think that he will have to cut the rates, or that he will think that he'll have to cut it so that he will cut it. And I think that this is a bad sign of our economy right now. Being down on a quarter like that, which hasn't been seen in over 2 years, not very good. Also not a coincidence, right? It's the tariffs. It's the ongoing trade war. So yeah, unfortunately, the wrong guy was put into office, and he's putting us in a position where this is still likely going to happen. But to talk about that, let's just hear from Pierre Poilievre himself.
Hi, Pierre. This is Shugi with Y Media. My question is regarding trade. I wanted to know, we've seen what's going on between Canada and U.S. I wanted to know, what would you have done differently if you become Prime Minister, and would you have been able to achieve a deal by now?
Well, the first thing I would have done differently is I wouldn't have broken my promise to Canadians. Mark Carney promised elbows up before the election. Yeah. He's been elbows down since. He promised a deal by July 21st. He secured no deal. Mm-hmm. He said he could, quote unquote, handle Donald Trump and negotiate a win. Yet since Mark Carney became Prime Minister, tariffs have doubled on Canadian industries. Regrettably, Mr. Carney's weakness has now encouraged the Chinese government to come after us with higher tariffs on our farmers and fish harvesters. So he has failed on the single biggest promise. Let's remember, Mark Carney said, forgive all of the Liberal disasters on housing, immigration, crime, taxes, debt, all for one promise, that he would put elbows up and win a deal with the U.S. That was his single promise. He has broken that promise. His weakness abroad is sadly costing Canadians at home. I would have negotiated from a position of strength. I would have passed immediately a Sovereignty Act, which would rapidly build up our pipelines, ports, LNG plants, nuclear plants to get markets outside of the North America. I would have unleashed home building to bring a sector that is trade proof, because most of the materials, all of the labor and land are right here in Canada. And I would have gone to our American friends and said, here's the deal that we offer. We will massively build up our military, secure our borders, stop the fentanyl and the drugs. In exchange, and we can do more and better on all those things if we have free and open trade that enriches both of our countries. But I would never have done what Carney did, which is make a bunch of chest-pounding threats and then back down from every single one of them. He has made concession after concession and gotten nothing in return. I should conclude by saying to Mr. Carney, work with us. We're happy to work with Mr. Carney and the Liberals to get a fair deal with the United States. Let's put party aside and let's stand up for Canada first.
Yeah, I mean, that all sounds great. And if you think that you're going to start to see or have been seeing some of what Pierre Poilievre has said, and that's what Mark Carney's doing, you would be correct in terms of, selling our LNG to Germany and to other countries aside from America. That is what Mark Carney is trying to do, but that was Pierre Poilievre's idea. It has been for quite some time, and it never really was even talked about by the Liberals. So you are seeing the Prime Minister literally do things in a delay, usually 3 to 6 months after Pierre Poilievre has said it. So whatever Pierre says to do now, expect Mark Carney to try to act on it in 3 to 6 months. It's a little weird to see that, because then it feels like we don't have it. Well, it feels like a couple of things, right? It feels like the opposition is lacking because the government is doing what the opposition says. Then is there truly an opposition? But also, then if that's the case, the other argument is, what the hell is the point of even having a Liberal government if they're going to do what the Conservatives are doing anyways, right? This is the whole shtick about what's going on and why people are pretty upset, including Liberal voters and supporters, saying, well, we voted Mark Carney in because he was not going to do what Pierre Poilievre is doing, but now he's doing what Pierre Poilievre is doing. And so what's the point of Mark Carney even being in the first place if he's just going to do what Pierre Poilievre is doing? And that's a phenomenal question that requires 3.5 years of self-reflection for all the Liberal voters and supporters that voted for Mark Carney. Come on, guys, you could do it. Get your head out of your butts, and next time just do the right thing and vote for the person directly, the source that will make the change, not the guy who will try to copy the change. And then, as a surprise little piece of content, I've got some good news. I lied at the beginning. I said there's no good news ever. I've got some good news, but only for those that made it to the end of the video. You remember Blockbuster and how it just kind of disappeared off the face of the map? Well, this news isn't about Blockbuster. It's about another store, specifically a Canadian store that dropped off the face of the map. Zellers. That's a name that you haven't heard in a long time. Zellers is coming back to one location in Edmonton Mall. Yep, you heard that right. Let's have a look.
A classic Canadian store appears to be opening a new location in North Edmonton. As CTV's Evan Kenny reports, it's unclear who owns it or what it will look like, but we're told Zellers is returning.
It's not an official announcement by them. It's a very soft launch. They're opening quite slowly.
It's the launch of a Canadian shopping staple, Zellers. According to Londonderry Mall's parent company, Layad, the store is opening tomorrow.
A lot of home goods and various clothing for men, women, kids. They'll also, what's pretty exciting is they will be bringing back the Zeddy teddy bear.
The shop will be on the bottom level of the space taken up by the former Hudson's Bay store. Zellers was owned by HBC, which did resurrect the brand for a short time. Earlier this year, Canada's oldest company and its intellectual property was sold to Canadian Tire, including the Zellers slogan, "The lowest price is the law." However, in a statement, Canadian Tire says its purchase did not include the Zellers brand. Regardless of who owns it, some Edmontonians are happy it's returning. What are your thoughts on Zellers coming back?
I'm super excited. That's my era. I grew up going to Zellers, so super excited. It's always been, I don't know, cheap place to shop, and yeah, it just reminds me of being a kid again.
I like it. I used to shop at Zellers lots before they went away, so I'm glad to hear they're coming back.
Layad couldn't give away too many details, like if the store will include a restaurant. It does expect more people will come through Londonderry Mall to see it for themselves. Evan Kenny.
Whoa, blast from the freaking past, man. This is crazy. That is actually, I've got goosebumps right now. I've freaking got goosebumps because Zellers was a big part of, I mean, all of our lives, unless you're like born in 2005 or later, I guess, or 2000s and later, or I guess earlier than that. It was a part of all of our lives. And so the fact that it's coming back, I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think it'll ever be what it once was. Let's just get that right out of the gate, right? But it's still cool that it's coming back, and we're going to have to see how this does play out. Also, who owns it? Like, what a mysterious sequence of events, right? Some unknown owner owns it, but Canadian Tire owns the slogan, but not the brand. It's kind of cool. I don't know. It's one piece of good news in Canada. The last one saved for the very end of the video. So if that doesn't earn your like and your subscription, honestly, I don't know what will. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye for now.